and welcome. As I was just introduced, I think I'm the only one between you and your lunch, so I'll be as quick, I think, as quick as possible. Data analytics and RPA. For those of you who are career auditors, you can see there's a typo in my slide. It's called RPC, it's RPA. Sorry about that. Data analytics obviously is a hot topic, and similarly RPA. Why? Because we're not talking about the future. These things are very relevant for the present. So our CEO, Ralph, is famous for quoting that there are no more banks. There are mostly fintech companies who do, banking. I think that sums up where we are currently, because the technology tsunami has taken over. It's the world of big data. It's so many exciting things that are happening. And I think the way our careers shaped up and the way the careers of graduates are shaping up is going to be so different. In 5 to 10 years time, everything that we know of will be redundant, and data and technology will take over, or has already started taking over. So I think this topic is very, very important. I'm not standing here to preach you about stuff. I think I'm going to share with you a journey on which we started, and I think where we have made some good inroads. I worked in 4 other banks before joining ING. So financial markets or financial services is all I know. I think the presentation is a little bit technical, so I will try and give the non-technical aspect, or try and demystify stuff as we get along. But if it gets too technical, or if you don't follow the terminology, please tell me. And obviously you're most welcome to stop me at any time, and then I'll be happy to take questions. I think the biggest thing, why we think, or why we started off on this journey within ING is very important. When I sat back and I thought that what is it that we can try and do to innovate and improve and add value to the organization. Now the 3 things that I said, innovate, improve and add value, are all cliches, but I think what it boils down to is how can we help the business? I mean, in our role as the third line, we have to talk to the audit committee, we have to go to the board, we have to talk to risk committee, we have to talk to our peers, we have to talk to the regulators, and we have to talk to our stakeholders constantly, almost. I mean, communication is quite key. And then also, if you look at the regulatory landscape, no one is interested in your 25 or 40 sample. They are interested in, have you looked at the entire population? Can you give me assurance that there is no other exception other than these few? And then, it muddies the water a little bit. I think the assurance piece, how we can add value to stakeholders, I think data analytics and RPA comes into picture. Now RPA, I don't know how many of you read the Audit and Risk magazine published by IIA. There was a very good article on AI and RPA. Now if you see, for instance, there are various examples, one of them being algorithmic trading. You use algorithms to sell stuff, to trade stuff, to buy stuff. You use algorithms to select candidates. And there's a lawsuit, if you Google, wherein the ATS, the application tracking software, which was built by humans, had an inbuilt unconscious bias, in the sense that any CV which came with women, or was the chairperson of women's badminton club, or anything which included women, that would just be sidelined, and it would not go to HR. It was so used to seeing men, it did not recognize women. So that's an example of AI and RPA for you, where it has gone, horribly wrong. Similarly, I've worked in various organizations, as I was saying. If you look at algos, they were named ambush, sniper, gorilla, so on and so forth, whereas actually they were doing your TWAP or VWAP or iceberg strategy, so on and so forth. And if you look at the press, I mean, if let's say gorilla or a sniper had a bad day and it lost clients some money, the press would have already called you or put you to jail, and the press would have already called the verdict, and the judge and the jury would have already called you guilty. So I think if you look at how these things are important and how they're taking over our lives, I think it's very, very important. Even within ING, we've built an algo, a sales algo, which looks at all the history of clients' orders and their behaviors, and they then say, oh, for this bid, they went for it, for this offer, they went for it, so on and so forth. And it looks at the whole history, and then it determines what is the chance, if you quote XY bid offer, that it will be picked up. Now, what is the guarantee that A, it is doing what it is meant to do, and B, a human being who designed it or who programmed it hasn't built any unconscious or conscious bias into it. I think that is where audit struggles a little bit in the current situation or scenario. And when you look at the whole picture, I think if you take a step back and say, what can we do to help, or how can we protect ourselves and the business, I think data analytics comes into picture. And that's where I want to go a bit more in detail. So if we look at the strategy is pretty simple. It basically says we're going to automate as much as possible, and we are not going to do the sampling, we're going to look at the full population, and of course we're going to see where we need to focus our energies in terms of where are the repetitive controls that we do, so on and so forth. Now I'm going to go on into details in terms of retail aspect of financial services as well. The problem is I have always done investment banking, so financial markets, so on and so forth, and that's pretty much what I know. So some of the examples are there, but what I've picked is a IB agnostic example and a IB specific example, so I can go into details. I can tell you, why we started it also is because in Barclays there happened to be a couple of graduates who built a tool which interrogated all sorts of client communication and came up with words wherein customers were saying they are facing a debt tsunami, or they're considering suicide, or they're in severe distress, and they came up with about thousands of these correspondence to the bank in electronic format, and they forwarded it to the relevant department. I think a few, immediately the bank set to work. And then I said, if two graduates can build this, why can't we? And what can we do about it? And so to bring it to life, I think that's how we shaped our data analytics strategy. In fact, we re-looked at the skill matrix of the entire population of our team. Our team is based in 6 locations globally. And so we looked at we had a long and hard look at the skills matrix, including of mine, saying how relevant are they for today. And then we initiated a smart auditor program. A smart auditor is someone who at the core understands the business knowledge. That is absolutely a must, because if you have a strong core, you can do almost anything. So at the core, you imagine the operational knowledge, and over and above that, you look at the technology, the systems flow. How does it go from A to B to C and end up in the general ledger? And equally, what do we need to do as a result? So how can we look at those risks? And with that, a wrapper of data analytics. So you can interrogate stuff, you can get stuff, you can look at stuff that you want. And we rechristened all of us as smart auditors, and we have initiated training programs. Including me, everyone is learning Python, SQL, and NIME, which I'm going to also talk about. And these are free, and you can achieve a lot with them. I think where we are stuck is we are used to doing a sampling methodology and extrapolating the results and coming up with exceptions and talking about those as issues. But actually, if we dig deeper, then we can get to the root cause of problems, and data analytics is here to help. And that's how, when we came up with the strategy, this is one of the things that we looked at. How can we automate key controls? because we're not going to look at everything. We are only going to focus on key controls for the best bang, for the buck. And how can we avoid repetitive tasks? I mean, we all know and we all say in audit that, oh yeah, I mean, we do, every day is different. Yes, every day is different for us. However, if you look at some of the core stuff that we do, it's predominantly repetitive. So how can we try and automate it? How can we build that extra layer of excitement into the team? And that's baked into our strategy. So we generally have themes. Now, for all of you sat here, financial economic crime would always be a theme. Let's say included in that will be customer due diligence, KY, know your customer, so on and so forth. Equally, for financial markets, sales and trading is a theme. So what did we do? We looked at, what is a key control? In definition, how does it sit? What do we have to do? How do we think about it? And is it a control? Is it mitigating a risk? Or is it just a process? How do we derive that, or how do we differentiate it? And then we say, okay, for this control on client due diligence, how are we going to actually look at the criteria that we need looked at? Or when an auditor looks at client due diligence, what are they looking at? So, and then we said, okay, we do X, Y, Z. We look at whether the review is complete, whether the review is timely, whether any anomalies were highlighted in the review, whether the review is done in the place, so on and so forth, in the first place, so on and so forth. And then you look at the script. Writing the script, I think, is a little bit of a pickle for us auditors. We have a lot of information and we generally are very analytical, so we go, we delve deep into it straight away. Actually taking a step back and looking at, okay, I have this information, what do I do with it? Where do I start? What are the key attributes? What are the key fields? And so, what do I need to look into? And how do I automate that? How do I build the script to look into those things is very important. And straight away, when you write your script, you will know straight away that these are the most important ingredients that you need for writing the script. And for scripting, it doesn't come naturally to us. So I cheated a little bit. So we hired data scientists who understand financial markets, products, so they could do the scripting for us. If we gave them, here are the controls that we want to look at, here are the specific attributes we want to see whether it passed or failed, and then they did the script for us. I'm going to go into details of how the script works. Yeah, so and then when we launched this, we got some very good benefits. As we say here, I think the sales audits that we normally do across various locations within IMG, financial market sales is spread across 28 locations, and so is trading. So when we look at sales, we have built a tool for the sales audits, and that sales as roughly 150 hours per sales location. So with that 150 hours, we can use on something more risky and something more exciting, because the repetitive one, the data analytics tool picks it out. Similarly for trading, equally we've done for client onboarding, we've done for counterparty credit risk, we've done for back office audits, so your settlements, your processing, your confirmations, so on and so forth, collateral management, trade and transaction reporting. This is an area where regulators are always asking for more. So this is a piece that that is exciting and also equally hard to automate from a tool point of view. So this is something we've done. And of course, continuous monitoring is part of what we do on a day-to-day basis, just like audits. So we try and see how can we automate, how can we be clever to look at key risk indicators, to look at lead indicators before they materialize. How can we try and see where there are problems? For instance, as part of continuous monitoring, for each trading desk, we look at cancel and amends where the trade version has been more than 4, for instance, because that shows there's something wrong, obviously, or the trader wouldn't need so long to decide. so on and so forth. I think you can give lots of practical examples, but the main point is that it is going to save you time. And the flip side, which I found really good, is some of these tools, like the sales tool or the trading tool, we have also handed it over to the business, saying, guys, we don't care who did this, but we have done something and it works, and it shows you all these anomalies at the press of a button. So why don't you use it for your daily work? And business has embraced it, and that has given us a lot of kudos, and something you can use too. This is also something that Jessica mentioned at another conference where she was speaking. Jessica is the Chief Audit Exec for Citigroup, and she said they have done that in Citigroup too, where they've given it to the business saying, we have built this and it works, so use it for yourself. There is no conflict on independence on our side, because all we are saying is, if this tool is within your risk appetite and these controls work for you, then by all means take it forward and use it. Or if you want to tweak it, the script is here, by all means you can tweak it and use it. And in a way, the way the audit committee chair said to us is, you're actually helping the business. We are not going there and say, here are your issues and thank you very much. We're actually saying, here's a tool that actually works and shows you things before they happen, or as they happen. Maybe you can use it to your advantage. And I think that is a big shift from what traditional audit has always done. So far, I think before I go into real life examples, are there any questions? Yes?
Hello. My name is Klaus Andersen. I'm from Swedbank, and I live in the same world as you do, wholesale banking. Well, we've been struggling with data analytics for a number of years, basically because of the spaghetti, all of the old legacy systems, and yeah. But that was perhaps not the real issue. The real issue was that when we came to look at it, we had like 1% of our resources put into data analytics and data literacy of around 20%. So we realized that we need to train in order to get smart. I would like to, where's the break-even point? Where is it? How much do I need to invest to get those 100 hours per trading desk?
I think that's a very good question. You made two very important points. I think something I generally gloss over is how difficult it is in the legacy infrastructure with the old systems, archaic systems, to get the data that you want. Because I think that is a key investment you need to put in. I think that is where I always say, we auditors are so obsessed with KYC, know your client, but we don't spend so much time on KYD, know your data. Know your data makes all the difference. If there's one thing that you can take away from this presentation, I think that is that, know your data. That is a very important term. I would invest, and to give you a sense of how much we have invested, I have probably invested roughly about $500,000 into this exercise within my own function. And in terms of time, it does take time, because it is not like you write a script and you get it right. There is toing and froing, there are false positives, and also there is the $500,000 is ballpark, because that includes training and also the time lost or the time invested in getting it right? So that is what I would say in hiring the right resources. Because, for instance, as part of Smart Auditor, we are sponsoring two people to do their masters in data analytics in NYU and one in LSE, and we have got we have hired a firm. I'm not the spokesperson, but so don't take it the wrong way, but they are very good. Cambridge Spark. Cambridge Sparks, and they do very good Python training. So we've invited them to do a lot of the training for us. We've got many of our core auditors do CISA, so I'm paying for that as well. Because without knowing applications, you can't do data. Without knowing what the risks are within those applications, you're nowhere. So for me, my annual budget is roughly in the range of 12 to 15 million. So I have gone about 500k to a million in investing these things, because when I look at how we started with 4 experiments. As I said, they are complex experiments, and then we have expanded the list. And the experiments always, as I said, they are experiments. They don't give you immediate results. You have to do a little bit of back and forth to get to the desired result. So I would say in wholesale banking, depending on your budget, I would roughly put 8 to 10% as the ballpark investment. But if you put that investment, the rewards that you're going to reap will be for the next decade or so or more. You just have to update the script when a system changes, and you get the same results. And the other piece is, I think, we, like every one of you, charges back to the stakeholders, and now they have said to us that they are happy with the chargeback because we've given them tools that they can play with, that they can actually use in the business, which makes a little bit of a difference. Instead of coming and saying, here are your audit reports, we've also built stuff for them. I'm not an advocate saying we need to build for them, but where there isn't something, it doesn't harm if you take the lead. It's always good to be on the front foot. And I'm also, my big bugbear is wherein auditors say there's us and them. There is no us and them. We work for the same bank. We might as well collaborate and add value to the business and give them something. And I've seen in my career that people who have contributed to the business, who have actually thought of how to help business, have progressed even in audit in their careers. So does that answer your question? 8 to 10% as the rough ballpark. I would start with 5, see how the results are, and then extend it, because once you justify with the results, then you can push this forward. My road wasn't easy to get this extra investment, make it sound easy, but it wasn't. But I had to do a couple of experiments, show the results to the business, show the results to the audit committee, and then we had a buy-in. Then from now, I think they're doing a read across the whole division to say, why can't you do it? Because financial markets, let's say, is a bit more complex than your personal accounts, your current accounts, your personal loans, your mortgages, etc. Although I'm not belittling them, but it's very complicated to put in all the rules and script them. So if we can do it, everyone else can, is all I can say. Any other questions? Okay, now here's a real life example. As I was saying, trading and sales solution, where we have automated over 100 controls that we look at. Basically, what do I mean? If I look at it, CDD, your client due diligence, is it up to date? Is the review done? Is it, are there any things that are flagged? Are we meant to trade with them or not? Or have we traded with the clients who don't have a valid CDD? Similarly, MiFID classification, how important it is now with MiFID 2 and all the stuff that it brings. Have we traded with, let's say, have we traded complex products with retail clients? They're not called retail anyway, but I'm simplifying stuff. EMIR. Have we traded EMIR products with non-EMIR counterparties? Dodd-Frank, exactly the same question. I mean, we do it day in and day out, but with data analytics, having used the script, and when you run it, you can get all of these in your planning phase. You can get all the anomalies in your planning phase straight away. You don't even have to look for it. It is going to spit out all the stuff. And some of the stuff, as I was saying, that it has showed is this. It answers. You can go confidently to regulators, to audit committee, to even the board, and say, yes, we do validate, whether all our customers have valid CDD. I'm not talking about a sample, I'm saying all our customers with which we deal with. And that is such a powerful statement to make. And you can make it because of data analytics. Equally, for instance, so equally we can say, we can confirm that all of them have had the latest CDD review status or not, or we can confirm that rogue trading activity, i.e., or we haven't seen rogue trading activity or too much of out of hours trading, out of mandate trading, or charging or charging similar clients different fees, because that all those kind of conduct related matters can be easily looked at as part of data analytics tool. So again, you're not looking at the sample, you're looking at the entire population. And what a powerful thing to say to customers, or for the board to say that our audit team has tested and we have found that we charge our customers fairly. There's no differentiation or there's no tiering, so on and so forth, though it's hard to say. Equally, we can there is a conduct risk dashboard which is built where they look at P&L spikes, where they look at cancel correct amends, where they look at various versions, how many versions the trade has been, so on and so forth. And from a retail bank point of view, if you look at it, you can go through all the personal accounts, all the current account, mortgages, etc., to say the same thing, that we are fair, we are treating similar customers with similar profile fairly, there is no differentiation, this, that and the other. So those are really powerful statements that you can make with data analytics. Just to give you another specific example, we use something called as 9. 9 is free and you can download if you want. However, I think Python and SQL are also very good, and more often than not we use Python. I was amazed that even kids in private schools who are as young as 11 are taught Python script in schools here, and I felt like I'm a dinosaur because I'm learning it now. However, better late than never. I think what we did in this thing, counterparty credit limit, is basically looking at have we given credit to the right kind of customers, have we stayed within our approved credit limits, and basically have we adhered to minimum standards in the counterparty credit limit policy. So what we did is we took the population of trades, we took various other static data, we took the limits from the credit risk application, and we took customer data, and we put them, we linked them on 9, and similar to Python, you link the fields that you want looked at, and then you get your results straight away at the press of a button. And what kind of things did we look at? So we looked at outstanding positions by location, by risk rating, by type of client, by product. So the beauty of data analytics is you can play with it. It gives you a whole host of stuff that you were not aware of or used to before. And that it also tells you how the credit limit evolved over a period of time, where there were spikes, who approved those spikes, and where the unapproved limits, how long they lasted before they were approved. It gives you a lot of information. Similarly, you can also look at counterparty credit limit levels by location, by risk rating, the shape of the pre-settlement limit, settlement limit, money market limits. These are very important limits, and I think in times of crisis they have shown to be very important for all types of clients. So you can look at the shapes of those, the curves, those, the evolution of those, and what you need to do with them. At the end of the day, this helps in giving or putting together a complete picture for your stakeholders and your regulators also, because this is one of the pieces of a regulatory audit. And as I said, if you look at distressed names, you can see how the limit evolution happened and how the credit rating moved from what it was to what it is now, and as a result, whether it's still a distressed name or not, so on and so forth. I think this was our work program to begin with, and what we did see is we linked, or we got trading behavior analysis in relation to credit limit violation. Now, this is a very important aspect, because if you look at culture, conduct, if you look at traders and where the financial services industry is going, it is very important that we can look at behaviors, patterns, and try and see if we can predict something before it hits us. And so if you look at traders or trading behavior vis-a-vis the credit limit, you can clearly see that yes, the credit limit was there, but the trader did not care anyway that with this transaction we will go over the credit limit. He or she decided we're just going to not care about it. That kind of analysis we will show. Now, I don't know how many of you sit on MD promotion panels or are part of a higher process of senior execs. I have in my previous 2 roles, and some of these things are part of the things that we bring to the table in the MD promotion, saying, by the way, you know, the person you want to promote to MD did out of hours trading here, or is a frequent person who does that. He's also a person who does out of mandate. Or we could also go and say, you know what, we looked at all these anomalies or all these types of behaviors and we didn't find any anomalies. Equally for us, again, I think there was a disciplinary hearing, just to give you a live example, about a trader, wherein me as audit went in and argued for him, saying over the last so many years, looking at his behavior, this is, firing him would not be the right choice. There are many other things you can take. And how did we do that? With all the data that we have, with all the reference points, the data points. So the first point, which talks about trading behavior analysis vis-a-vis credit limit violation, was something that you would not normally get if you didn't apply data analytics to the full population and see it end to end. Similarly, post-trade monitoring, I think this is where mostly the regulators are more interested in. We looked at breaches, and we could see breaches in all the areas and how they evolved, how long they remained breaches before someone picked it up and did something about it, before someone approved it or did not, or we unwound the trade. So all those kind of things tell a story about the control environment. I think the more and more we join the dots with data, the better our offering to the business will be. I think from a stakeholder point of view, this is where we can add most value. Now, ING, we are a bit privileged in the sense that they have something called as DAP, Data Analytics Platform, and we have plugged in our tools into those. So that means if one of you wants to use the same tool, and you're in the business, you just have to get download Python or KNIME or whatever, and just say the name of the script that we use, and you can start using it tomorrow. So we have got that kind of a thing where we have got we've understood our data, which took a lot of time, and we have mapped it well, so we know where we are picking our source data from, and all we do is plug in our analytics tool and get the data ourselves and do it for ourselves. And I think that is a very, very powerful proposition for audit. So if you know your data, you don't need a DAP. You can still plug into the source system, get your data, and get these kind of analysis. In a nutshell, I wanted to leave you with these 2 real-life examples. I can talk more about what other industry people do. But before I go on, I think I have 5 more minutes. I'll open the floor for questions.
Hi, it's Patrick speaking from the ZAM in the Netherlands. I had a question around ethics. The fact that you can do a lot of analytics and can connect a lot of dots, that sometimes also would raise questions on should you be doing certain analytics. And you gave the example where you use some data in that you use as input in an HR process. So what's the governance or the mechanism that you put in place in ING to actually ask that question of conscience, should we go that route? So what is stopping you or enabling you to continue or not?
I think that's a million-dollar question. Where do you stop and where do you draw the line? And where does auditor's independence end and where it... I think to be very honest with you, in terms of the HR reference points, I think that's for everyone to see. So it's not that we have built it to particularly spy on XYZ. However, what we have built could also be used for those purposes in case his or her manager chooses. So to answer your question, in this specific instance, so for a MD promotion, there are many people. There is a panel, right? Similar to wherever you work. MDs are taken very seriously, so there would be a panel, and mine is just one voice. And generally, audit doesn't get a place at the table, but for whatever reason, we do have. And I'm not using it as a piece of, let's say, vendetta. I'm using it as another reference point to say to people making the decision that here are my thoughts. This person has got or has done this or has not done this, so on and so forth, and it's entirely up to them to decide. So I am not the deciding factor. Even when it comes to recruitment, so audit does play a part in the sense that we speak to them before they come into the door, obviously with no agenda, but just to understand that person obviously in the business has a revenue angle and they want to drive getting revenue, so on and so forth, but also do they have the balance of the control agenda, just to understand that. Otherwise, from ethics, independence, objectivity, we're not losing anything by forming part of it because we're just one voice in the panel. So, and at the end of the day, it depends on the business. So you asked me what is enabling us to do this, the business. So if the business didn't want my voice to be heard, they wouldn't invite me to the panel or for hiring and those disciplinary kind of proceedings. But as you can see, audit's status is not the same as it was before. It's gained even more importance because in the organization, we are the only function, I can go on record to say that, we're the only function who can see end to end. And that is a very valuable insight that many business people miss because they only look at their own specific portion, whereas we look at it front to back, and that gives us an advantage. So those are the two specific points. If the business didn't empower us or didn't give us that, I wouldn't normally go and give them those details.
Any other questions?
Oh, there's one here.
I just wanted to say the point you raised in the end. I think that's very important to consider. We also plugged into our company's data discovery platform that gives us Python, Hives, and gives us access to use all of the data analytics tools, but also takes care of all of the data protection issues and also make sure that we can maintain these queries, maintain these jobs. Because when I sit and look at what you've done, I have had a couple of very talented quants that have done many of the things and also pushed a little bit left to the... But the problem I have had in the past is when they went on to new positions and I had to rehire one, I had to think about access rights, I had to think about how the hell that Excel was set up, and these things, it cost a lot of energy that perhaps is not best spent within internal audit, but they are all banks and all fintech companies that are involved in banking had that somewhere else, and you can rent space there.
I think that's a very valid point, and for us, that's where we build redundancy in every layer, because these scripts should be maintainable, these scripts should be easily changeable, and anyone who picks them up should understand. So we not only have documentation, we are auditors after all, but we also train repeatedly to make sure that this is reinforced and there are redundancy. But in business, I do agree that with access rights, with access to all this sensitive information, we are wall crossed, we are permanent insiders, so there is a little bit of leeway there. But within the business, that is a bit of a pickle, may I say, in terms of access. I think that has to be carefully managed. I don't have the silver bullet answer for that though, because I think you may build redundancy, but then again, in terms of access, how many people you give access to that kind of privileged, sensitive information is a bit of a question or a hot potato.
In our organization, it's built like the data discovery has different rooms, so you rent the room in, and then it's only the auditors that has access to that data that is specific to that room. So for example, if it's client information, the transactions and the client activity might be in another vault where it is anonymous, but since we are inside the vault, we can have it with the actual information. Yeah. But those rooms are kept very separated. So
I see, and it is very important. I think for us, we take it for granted because audit charter gives us access to all sorts of information. So we have access to all sorts of information, whereas in the business, that is segregated carefully for various reasons, and I totally support that. I think that we shouldn't muddy the waters there, but in terms of what we need to, when we look at the solutions with data analytics, we need to be very careful about who in the business does what and has access to what, because we may be actually giving the key to the person who needs to lock it. So it's a conundrum that way. However, I would like to leave you with one thought, that KYD is very, very important. And if you know your data, then you can answer your regulators, your stakeholders, your audit committee, your board, and you'll be very happy, doing what you're doing, because you will have that power. Knowledge is power after all. And none of this, the examples of the work program is private, so none of the scripts I've written are closed in terms of confidential or whatever. So if you are interested, if you want to find out more, by all means reach out to me on LinkedIn. As I said, I'm not here to preach, but in the journey wherever we are, I'm sure there could be points where we can exchange information and try and help each other. With that, thank you very much for your time and attention.